Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Photographing Your Pet. I'm Sarah Muriello with the Pasadena Humane Society, and with us today is Glenn Kamhai, one of our amazing animal photographers. Hi, Glenn.
Hey, how you doing, Sarah, and everybody else who we can't see, but we assume are there.
We're really excited to have you all here today. And before I turn it over to Glenn, I just wanted to share with you a few webinar reminders. So here we go, if my slideshow will cooperate with me. All right, so you should be able to hear us. We can't hear you. You are automatically muted. So no worries if you have other things going on in the background. Also, you should be able to see Glenn and I or what we're sharing on our screen with you through the duration of the presentation, but we can't see you. We also want to ask that you save your questions for the end. Two reasons. One is that we're hoping that your questions get answered during the presentation, but also we have some time at the end for a great Q&A with Glenn if any questions come up. And the way that you're going to submit your questions during the Q&A is by using that little question drop-down box that you see there, and you're going to submit your text in the box. I'll be the only one who sees your question, and as time permits, I'm going to go ahead and get your question over to Glenn in the Q&A so he can answer it. If you are joining us from your phone, that Q&A option might look a little bit different. It might be in the form of a question mark icon, but if you're joining us through your desktop, this is what you'll see. We also want to remind you of a couple upcoming webinars. We have Dog Massage Basics with a certified animal massage therapist, Amber, and that's next Wednesday, May 20th from 12 to 1. And then we have a great webinar coming up with our behavior and training manager, Fernando Diaz, called Why Does My Pet Do That? Understanding and Managing Problematic Behaviors. So you can join any of our webinars at pasadenahumane.org/workshops. All right, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Glenn. Just give us a moment to switch screens.
Okay. Not yet.
All right, Glenn, you're on, and I think you can share your screen.
How exciting. Okay, let's do this. Let's get this going here. And I'm going to go off camera for a bit and put on the PowerPoint here. Just double check, because this is exciting new technology. Am I on as well, or is it just the video, the display?
We see you and the PowerPoint.
Okay, well, I'm a little boring here, so I'm going to turn myself off, and we'll just say this. All right, great. Thank you, Sarah. I assume that's all. That's perfect. Okay. Any glitches, just chime in. So thank you, everybody, for joining. And I hope that this is going to be fun and interesting for all of you. And by the time we're done, you'll feel inspired to get out and take some photos, try some new things you haven't tried before, whatever your ability level is, and share them with us if you do. That would be wonderful. As I give you a little introduction about myself, I'm going to just show you some of my photos so you have a sense of what I like to do. And then I'll give you a quick overview of everything we're going to cover over the next about half hour before we open up to the Q&A. So photography is my most passionate avocation. I learned by trial and a whole lot of error. So I'm hoping I can help you guys skip as much of the error portion of the program as possible and just have the fun part. So that's why I want to share tips. When I'm not screenwriting or doing my own photography, I volunteer as an animal photographer at the Pasadena Humane Society. And many of the photos I'm showing here are of animals from the shelter, like these two of my all-time favorite dogs, happily adopted. And since we're all in our own shelters right now, we're going to be talking mainly about photographing your own pets. And so we can bypass some of the tips I usually teach new volunteer photographers at the shelter about working with an animal you've just met in a new environment where they're probably stressed. But if any of you are interested in doing that, once life gets to something resembling normalcy, definitely get in touch with the Humane Society. That would be fantastic. And if you have questions that are specific about working with new dogs, maybe you're photographing a friend's dog or a cat or iguana, let me know and we can talk about that. So this is mostly going to be a tech-free webinar because we have all different ability levels here. And I want to give you, for the most part, tips that you can immediately take out and use to elevate your pet photography without any learning curve, regardless of your proficiency or what camera you're using. And however, there are a few things that you really do need to be using a serious and manual camera to do. And so if you're interested, if you already do that, then other tips will be useful. And if you just want to dabble, hopefully I can give you some tips on that. And then I'll have some extra pieces up on a website. We'll give you the link later, and I'll be adding those so you can get more detailed. Whoops, sorry there. Get more detailed information later. So what we're going to cover, detailed information about more technical aspects of photography. So what we're going to cover, here's the grand overview. First, and the largest portion of what we're going to do today is just the 5 key tips that'll instantly help you improve your photos. And then a few ideas that I hope will spark your creativity, get you to think just in different ways about taking photos so you can do some fun things you haven't done before, perhaps. And then optional but useful, how to make finishing touches on your photos, whether it's on your phone or in Photoshop or some other type of software, because that really is the last part of turning something from a snapshot to a photograph, just like we used to do in the darkroom. And then a couple optional advanced tips as mentioned. So rule number 1, obviously, there are none. I'm going to speak in some definitives and say you should do this, don't do this. But like any rule like that, they're all breakable. It's just the idea of these are tried and true, and there's a reason why we like to do certain things. But once you know them, once you wear them, do whatever you want. And I'll show counter examples to almost everything I say. So the 5 key tips. Number 1, if you only take one thing and you're already bored and you want to go shoot, that number 1 is pretty much the bulk of it. Shoot at their eye level. You will see, we'll do comparisons so you can see when you're standing, like most of us are taller than our pets, unless I guess you have a giraffe. So you're going to want to get down at them instead of standing up over them. It's a whole different feel when you look at a photo. Next, pay attention to the background. We'll talk about that a little more, why that's important, and we don't usually think about it. Same with light. And then figuring out what gets their attention and their eyes on you, and be patient and shoot a lot. Seems obvious, but we'll talk about that a little more, because that is also the key difference between okay photography and really good photography. So number 1, shoot at their eye level. Here is Sally at eye level. Instead of telling you why I say this, I have a little example. I just want you to look at photos taken at different levels and how they each make you feel, because that's really what matters. So hopefully this audio works and you'll see this exciting movie extravaganza. And it didn't play, of course. Okay, let's try this again. Okay. This is the lazy version, the crouch. Better, in my opinion. He's scowling. We'll cover this a little later, but I just throw a little extra fill light and a little catch light in his eye. We'll see the difference here. That's just a bike flashlight. And it's required that you kiss your animal at the end of every photograph. That is also the big difference between good photography and not. So I'm going to just go through those 3 versions again. Here's the standing at my eye level. That's crouching. And that's when I'm down on the ground. So just going back again, they're all valid photos. They're all fine. I think they each can serve a purpose, but just think about what this makes you feel. If you feel engaged differently, do you feel connected to the animal differently? And something I will cover later, but just notice how his eyes pop. That's mainly because of that little flashlight that I held. If you have one that's too bright, you can put some tissue over it or something like that. We'll talk about that later. So, because I'm keeping this away from advanced equipment. So I'm just trying to think of things you already have at home. You don't want to go out to a store right now, probably not for a long time. So that's that. Here's 3 more, just 3 other photos, eye level at when I'm standing. I'm doing the lazy crouch, but it's a little better. And now I'm getting down on the ground and back, forth. Okay, I think we covered that. Here's a whole bunch of animals, some of them shelters, some of them not. Again, I'm down at their level on every one. And if you have a little animal, a cat or a small dog or lizard, you don't have to, obviously you don't always have to get down. You can put them on a pedestal, literally and figuratively, or something that's at your eye level to make it easier for you. Now, sometimes you're photographing your animal with something else that's big. Like on the left, I had the wagon from the Humane Society. The instinct is to stand up and shoot that at eye level because it's huge. But because I shot down on laying down on the ground at this guy's Blue at his level, I think we have a whole different experience of that truck and of him. And I feel we connect to it all much more. And I feel better about the truck now because it's seeing it the way he would. And on the right, this similar idea. This is a golf photo to help promote what was going to be the big golf event that is now as an auction online benefiting the Humane Society. You should check that out. Okay, again, nice car. I could have shot this at my eye level, but getting down to his not only made it to me more interesting, but also funnier. And that is, I know what he was thinking. Okay, so that's eye level. Paying attention to background. We see a shot, we see our pet doing something, we just grab the camera and hopefully they don't stop doing it, which most do. But we just take the picture and we don't really think about what's in the image. But you want to train yourself to always think what is behind the subject. This will work for people too, by the way, but we're talking about animals. If you have something busy and conflicting by light, color, shapes, your eye isn't going to go to the animal as much. Again, it's the difference between a snapshot and a photograph. So here, this example, I had a shelter, one of my favorite shelter dogs, Blue. He's on my bed here on a field trip, and it's a busy room. There's the different colors, the bed frame. This is the only framing I could come up with that worked because I had the nice soft light behind him, and he's darker. And I don't know if you can see my cursor, but at least he's positioned between these, and so he's not competing with any hard lines. And to me, it's not perfect, it's not the best, but given what I had, that was the one place I could stand to make that be a good photo. Here's an example of busy background, clean. There's maybe very valid reasons you want to show a busy setting. You're trying to show something off. So the left one is certainly a valid photo, but if your goal is to show off your animal, the one on the right works a lot better. And all you need is a badly mowed lawn and you've got a great background. But any number of things. If I have a little dog, I could get real close just in front of this pot, and that would be a fine background. These are all variations. Now, on the left, that is a busy background, but because I did very tight focus, a shallow depth of field, we'll talk about that later, it looks like a nice soft background and the colors contrast. Here I'm at the beach and here just in a yard. So those are all nice clean backgrounds and you can usually find something. Here I had a very busy background to shoot beauty here, but I noticed that we had this, I don't know if that's agave or whatever it is. This was nice and bright in the light, and it would be a good place to position her head in front of. And I tried moving around until I found that, and that was the way I made a good shot out of this with even a busy background. So again, just think about it as you're going. So next, paying attention to light, very similar and a little bit trickier, but I'm trying to keep this again from any special equipment except for one piece I'll talk about, but you can make it at home. Light is as important as objects because that's how we see or don't see what's behind something. So with these cats here, they were sitting on a wall. This is a little town, and I noticed that the light was striking the cat on the right, on the left, very strongly, and then I had light and shadow. So I moved around till I could make sure to place the cat's face behind this nice, bank sort of empty shadow area. If I had to stand just a little bit over, like where the other cat is, it would have been too busy and this photo just would not have been as dynamic and not as interesting. I also just liked the play of light and shadow here. There are a couple of things with this photo. You'll see a lot of repeat photos today because same photo covers different topics, but for now, that's what you need to know there. And again, with these two, I didn't have much opportunity. This dog did not want to pay attention to any of us, what we were doing. And we had a really tight time. I think we had 2 minutes. So I just knew the sun was highlighting his head and the background here was kind of plain and contrasting with color as well. So shooting him right here was the best way to do it. I couldn't get him fully away from the wall, but it was close enough. And same here with a beautiful Sally again. I wanted to get this shot really quick. So I just found this dark kind of bland background that pops against her because she was in light. If I'd been closer to the wall here, she would not pop. this would not be as fun a photo. And again, I just like the laughter of our fellow volunteers in the background and out of focus. It's fun. And this is the amazing behavior expert Quinn from the Pasadena Humane Society, who poses for many of our dog photos. These are just, the one on the left was actually more of luck, as you can tell. Just happened to get this. My dog doesn't normally do the time warp, but I was just lucky to get this nice dark background. I could act like I did it on purpose. I absolutely did not, but it worked. And then now this one was on purpose. The cat on the right, I had the dark gray cat against the dark gray chair. There was a window in the back that was closed, and I knew I needed separation between the two, cat and the chair. So we opened the window to get that nice, not only bright light, but also blue light, which is a nice contrast to the yellow warm tones inside. And you'll notice that gives the nice highlight here. That's a con thing. We call it a rim light, or there's a couple other words for it. You can do that on purpose in the studio, but anywhere you are, just get a bright, strong light. Get the sun behind you. As long as you have some light on, I mean, behind the subject, some light on the subject, they're going to separate from the background like this. It would be a totally different photo without that nice rim outline. And you don't have to be fancy. You don't have to put a lot of thought into it. Just look, oh, the sun's over there. Or there's a nice light coming in from a window. Face this way, and you got a nice photo already. This one is more about just playing with light for artistic reasons. I didn't love this pole being behind her, but I didn't have a choice. That's where the cat was. I couldn't talk to it, even if I could. I don't speak Italian. I was in a little town in Italy. So I did, in Photoshop, I did brighten this pole a little bit. I don't normally cheat or play with photos that way, but just brightening contrast, it looks a little more like it did to me in real life, but my camera didn't get it. So that helped separate them a little bit. But when you get to creative areas, just play with shadow and light like this. You can take what might just be a boring photo of a cat against a wall and elevate it to something more interesting. Again, on the left, similar thing. This was actually very bright in my room. It was not dark, but I exposed for this light here. I tried to make it bright, and I'll show you how to do that on a phone or better on a serious camera. I wanted him to be in silhouette. I just thought that was more interesting here. And then he's in contrast to the background. And then again, just thinking about playing with light here, I'm just doing the hose shot. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I saw that light was coming through the branches, so we positioned the hose to spray there so that I could get these cool shafts of light. Just makes it more interesting. One other way to think about light is soft or hard light. If you have nice cloud cover is the best for photography. Sun is harder to deal with, so nice sun like this. Or here it was indoors and we had light coming through a translucent curtain on the window. I turned off the another light so that it would be nice and soft, because here they struck me as really peaceful, quiet, kind of sleepy, and I wanted it soft to go with that mood. Hard light could have been nice for a photograph, but it wouldn't have been emotionally what I was after. Whereas on the bottom here, he's active, he's excited, he was having a great time. It seemed like harder light was fine. So instead of being an shadow, shadow, I let his head be in the sun. I exposed for that, and it just seemed more interesting to me and separates him from the background. Just something to think about. If what your mood is, you tend to know what soft light makes you feel. It's calm. Okay, so I do want to talk about one piece of equipment, which is the reflector. Oh, wait, did I add? Hopefully I added another video. The reflector, I have one, it's a piece of photographic equipment, but you can just use a piece of poster board. You can cut it into a circle, that's cool. You can do one side white poster board, put some tin foil on the other side, and you have a ready-made reflector without spending any extra money. But let me just show you what it does for you when you're taking photos. It is often worth it. You can even use, if you're wearing a white shirt, or someone is, you can have them stand in light. But here, I guess I didn't have audio. So that's the white, that's just the white side on and off. You see how it brings all the light into him, and it also gives him a nice spot in his eyes. Now this is the foil side. That's too bright here, but it at least shows you what you can do. And he's bored completely with me now, and that's how you fold it if you do get a nice reflector. It never goes that fast. That was a weird moment that it actually worked on camera. Okay, so I think I didn't show it here. Okay, when we're done, I'm going to show you the video of what that looks like from the camera's point of view. So hopefully I remember to do that. Here are some examples of using that light, using that reflector. All I had was that reflector, and it gives me this nice extra light. He would have been in total shadow here, but because I wasn't holding it, so one of the many great handlers at the Humane Society was holding it for me. But you can do it on your own. It also gives you that nice sparkle in the eye, and on the right, it's even more dramatic. It was quite dark there with one little shaft of sunlight going the wrong way. So we were just shining it on him, and we got that beautiful photo that I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Okay, figuring out what gets their attention. You're going to know your animal better than anyone. Dogs tend to be, of course, easiest. They just want to react to everything. So you're going to go for treats. You save your most special treats for when you really want to get a good photo. And so they're more focused on you. If there's commands that they go for, make bizarre noises. One of the great handlers, Cheryl Collins at the Humane Society, has taught me to cease being embarrassed and make the most bizarre sounds that somebody might put you in an assigned asylum for to get a dog's attention. It's a blast. And usually if your dog already knows everything you do and is bored, some new sound you've never made before is going to be the thing that does it. Squeak, howl, whine, sing, whatever it takes. Guttural to high pitch, cluck. You can use squeaky toys, crinkling a can or a piece of plastic, whatever you can do. For cats, little harder, little trickier. As you know, you own a cat, you know generally what's going to get their attention, but you can try laser pointers, you can try the feather toy, or there is a certain treat. It sometimes not the first choice, but that can work, a super special treat, and you can maybe put it in a little bowl and put it right near the camera to get them to at least look at you once they know it's there. And there are a few other things that you can do, but when you are trying to get the dog's or cat's attention, remember, if you're holding something for them to look at, hold it right at the lens, literally right above the lens of the camera or right below it. If you have somebody helping you, don't have them stand to the side of you or a little off, right behind you or right in front of you, best right next to the camera, because there's a huge difference between the eye looking at the camera and the eye not looking at the camera. Most of the time, we connect with people and animals by looking into their eyes. There are plenty of photos where you don't have that, like this one right here. He's looking at the ball, but that's a different type of photo. But when you look at their eye, that will really help you connect to them. Getting a dog's attention, this was just, we did Santa photos. This was just a funny way. This is not generally how I say to do it, but magically it worked. I'll just show you this. I think that's me in the middle there. Oh, that's the great Cheryl I mentioned. All right. And we got the shot right before the music started, bizarrely. So we were doing everything, bells, calls, hollers, the owners were there. Oh, and thanks to the great volunteer, we're gonna do it again, Luke, for putting that video together. So normally you just want one person because dogs don't know where to look. There we had 3 dogs. They were kind of needed to all be excited. So it worked, whatever it takes. We can talk about that more if you have specific questions. So working with other animals. Oh, here's the giraffe if one of you has it. So if that one, you want to get up high. You get at eye level. There's no other way around that. For the guinea pigs, I haven't had much luck getting a guinea pig to do anything I want. So I needed to photograph this one, and I just had, again, it was, I believe, Quinn at the Humane Society, hold the guinea pig, and it was easy enough to get the shot. And actually, I liked that look, and I liked that it says human on there, sort of confusing all of us who don't know what that is. And that's a cell phone photo, by the way, just so these are not all with my serious camera. And again, with lizards and amphibians, sometimes a studio shot is the best way. You just get them on a nice clean surface and you get down on the ground with the camera and just hope they get them to eventually look at you. But what I did here is I just had Dexter's owner hold him in her hand and then stick her hand in some bushes. So we got a semi-nature feeling shot while still being able to control them. So that's one trick I like to use. Sometimes you don't want their attention. Dog's doing something adorable, like here, there's no one there but us pillows, apparently. You don't always have to get their attention. Sometimes your best photos are completely different. Here's an example where I did want his attention, but not on the camera. On the right is the photo. I really love the way the sun was playing. I wanted to get that sun glinting on his face. So on the left, you see how I was doing it. I'm holding the toy that he absolutely loves, and while holding the camera, if you can see it, depending on how big your screen is, down below to get what I wanted. All right. So anyway, all sorts of different ways to get their attention. And most of the time you want them looking at you, but there are specific times you don't. Next, and last of the key tips, be patient and shoot a lot. If your camera has a burst or continuous mode, nowadays most phones do, and certainly most advanced cameras do. It's often a particular setting you can find. That lets you just hold down and take a ton of photos at once. If your animal is just not quite looking at you and you just can't predict, or if they're doing something with high action, or in this case, I had this boy, Elton, every 20 seconds, he was doing something else adorable, just staring at me from about 2 feet away on the ground. So I just took a ton of photos and picked my favorites. On most phones, you just hold the button, or you touch it and move it to the left, but you can check your documentation. Okay, so those are the main tips. There is actually a sixth one that I think is equal to number one of importance, but I'm saving it for later because it's more advanced. You can't really do it on a phone. You can sort of cheat it, but it doesn't quite work. So we'll get to that. So spark your creativity. Four main things to think about, I would say. Angles, high, low, askew. Framing, try extremely tight or wide. Normally you want your animal to fill the frame. That's a big difference. We most between real good photography rather and just snapshots. We tend to stand far away. You take a photo, your whole house is in it or your whole yard, and the animal is just this little thing in it. Get right up there. But sometimes you do want to go really far, really tight. Color, something, I'll explain why I mentioned that. It is actually something I always think about when I photograph. It becomes second nature. It's worth it. And then backdrops. That's you can make a cheap studio in your house if we're still unable to go places for holidays. And you want to take your holiday animal, cat, or dog photos. You can do that at home with stuff you already have at home. We'll go over that. So angles, have some fun. Why not? Everyone's photographed the bridge. We want to do something different. Now I said get down to the eye level. Don't look down. Here, one of my all-time favorite photos, a boy named Duke. I did the exact opposite because that's what I wanted with him. He loved looking straight up at you with those big eyes of wondering what you're going to do next and why you're not paying attention to him constantly. I also loved the out of focus grass, the way it contrasts with the bright orange of his eyes. And I love that his head is so much bigger than his body. These are fun photos to take. You can take it with almost any animal. So just keep that in mind. Now, other high angles. This on left, this is my late boy Satchmo, who loved standing over the welcome mat to watch who was coming in. He was our welcome committee. And I just thought, I'm never going to see this particular angle, but that was interesting to me. I also liked how color-wise he is the same color as the welcome mat, so it accentuates that he feels at home there. And then on the right, another golf promotional photo. Go bid, by the way. I liked the high angle just because that was the best way to shoot him jumping out of this circle of golf clubs, which is such an obvious motif that I don't have to explain that. I actually don't know why I did that. Okay, low angles are fun too. We have a Capone here on a hike. I got down below the wall he was on and just thought that would be interesting to feel what he was feeling, which was, I really want to climb down this right now, and I'm not going to listen to this stay command for more than another 30 seconds. I also liked him having the mountain as a background behind him. It gave it a much better sense of place than if I was just at his eye level. And then the photo on the right you already saw. Okay, now framing. Again, going really wide can be fun. This was also Capone. We had a water bowl on a hike. He had no interest in the water bowl, but then he saw this water bowl and oh, he was into that at Caltech. So I could have been real tight, nice reflection, could have been pretty. To me, this was much more interesting and funnier to go wide. And I liked him being way off center. It just felt, it accentuated how big this was and that's where he had to drink. Or going extremely tight. On the right, this is my boy, one of my boys, who was so cozy asleep. And if I'd done a wide shot or even full body, I wouldn't have had the same feeling I feel. Your mileage may vary, but for me, I'm sort of in his dream right now. I'm close up on him. I'm feeling it. I also loved how parallel his paws are here. And so just thinking of that, what is it, the feeling that you want to get across? Sometimes it's getting real tight or real close or real far. On the right, my neighbor's cat. who has the most spectacular nebula exploding eyes. I guess I could call them supernova rather. So I just wanted to get as tight as possible on those. And I it, it was only after I cut out the mouth that suddenly it really worked. I kept thinking the whole face, but this made the eyes be my focus. Again, on the left, nice wide. I just found this more artful. This cat was just sitting on some, well, just sitting there. You can see I liked this. Getting tight was interesting, the contrast with the photo, but going wide was, to me, just painted a picture that tells a story to me. I call this one Cat Lady, and I'm dying to know their story. I will never know. Again, I wouldn't spoken their language anyway. And then on the right, this my dog had a surgery and he couldn't get on the bed. It was on the floor, and he kept just doing this and then slipping down a foot. That struck me as both horribly sad and hilarious. And taking it from across the bed, looking at him from his level, but really wide, got that across to me that a tighter shot would not have. This one as well, similar thing. I don't really have to add much to that. He did find the tennis ball, by the way, on the other side of the wave. Okay, color. This is generally easy because our animals tend to only come in a few colors. Some lizards, you're going to get some more interesting ones, but our cats and dogs, not a big range. Think about whether the colors are, you want the colors to be the same as your animal, very similar, or go the opposite, go complementary colors, and why. Or if they're black or white, any color can make an animal pop. So here's some examples. I tend to think about this all the time. I tend to go with complementary colors. So on the left, we have this beautiful orangish reddish girl. So I decided to go with a blue background and a purple bandana, just because both of those are nice complementary, in the complementary range for her. And that really makes her pop out. Here we have a gray dog, which you can do anything with. I could have gone for an orange to just make her eyes pop. That's a nice thing, common thing to do, again, with people too. But here I just liked the red to really make her go. I'm guessing it was a holiday photo. And I just added the green to add some contrast as well. And then on the right, my good friend Sarah Fury set this up, I believe, with the flowers. Or maybe it was, I'm not sure who did that. But we did, we had the purple background, and so we had the yellow flowers again to give some contrast, and the color just makes the white dog pop. Here's one. Now this I did just as an example. The photo on the left is the actual photo. This is my boy Louie. Blue is a perfect contrast with him, and I just love getting close and showing him be cozy and really standing out from there. I didn't have to worry. That was one of the easiest photos. Now I cheated here on the right. I just recolored it to be more his color, just to see what that would feel like. He's sort of lost in there. To me, he almost feels sadder, but he also feels cozier to me in a way because he blends. Generally, when somebody is, I think this photo on the left, that probably does it better because it's not exactly the same color, but it's close. Generally, when you see this in movies a lot, somebody's costume is the same color as the background, they tend to we feel like they belong there. And if they're contrast, either they don't belong or they're very important and they pop. If they're the only thing that's a contrasting color. Similar with animals. You can decide what emotion you want us to have. Now I bring back to this one, because I had these nice kind of cyan colored window covers here, which is another reason I love this, because that contrasts with them. So they're sort of, the immediate background is the same color, but this is the green gives a nice dynamic feel. I don't know if it was necessarily an emotion, but artistically I liked it. I pulled that saturation out a little bit in Photoshop at the end, but that was there. And then these crazy guys who I own, on the right, you'll notice the blue of the sky's reflection in the sand is a nice contrast with Louis here. And I chose that angle specifically for that. It was much bluer on the right, so I kind of moved around to get that. I just like the way he popped because my boy on the left is black. He contrasts already without needing color. And then for this one, I wanted to do the opposite. I wanted to go with similar color. You'll notice the color of her eyes match the leaves down here. It was really on purpose. I actually moved the leaves into the shot just to give a nice feel. It just added something to this photo, especially with the deep blue behind her, contrasting. So she feels very at home in the foreground, and then back there in the distance is the cold area. So it makes her feel more, to me, more content and warm. Also, she was actually completely in shadow, but I used the reflector, I used the silver side for harsher light here to bring the light into her face and her eyes. Otherwise, I would not have gotten a good photo. It didn't take long at all. Okay, I did have this one again. So, last thing on this on tips is backdrops. This is the simplest, cheapest, fastest way to do this. You can use a regular sheet if you don't have a photo backdrop. Pick a color you like that you've got. Drape it over a couple chairs, or you can use clips if you have them, or tie it to something, and spread it out pretty far. I would iron it first. I didn't do that here, so you don't have lots of wrinkles. Um, and then if you notice in the back, I have a window here that's giving me some soft fill light. And then I just used it. I just going with no special equipment, a little desk lamp here, table lamp, and the reflector to give a little light in the shadows. And then here's the photo, which I just took with my cell phone. And you'll notice on the left side of the photo here, where his face is shadowed, it's still got a lot of detail. That's because of the reflector. You'll notice down by his paws where it's really dark, that's what his face would have looked like if I didn't have the reflector. And that really made all the difference. Now, nicer photography, you would have a soft light from kind of overhead, and you would try to light up the background so you don't have a lot of shadow. But you can do that even with lights you have, but you don't need any special equipment if you just want to have some fun playing with backdrops. And you can do all sorts of things, and I can answer more questions about that if anyone has them. Here's some samples that we've done at the Humane Society. Oh, on the right, you see sometimes you can do outside, get a little dappled light in the background. Oh, one quick thing about light. I don't like it's not that I don't like shooting in dappled light, coming through trees is very difficult on an animal because you have really bright areas and really dark areas, and you often have to expose for the middle and then fix them up like I actually had to do on the right. So try to get in the shade or a soft sun. Sometimes your dog does not want to cooperate with the backdrop and instead thinks it's a toy. That was my favorite shoot I ever done. So break your plans is my lesson there. When you have to be patient and take time, go with what the animal wants to do. Sometimes that's the best thing. Okay, finishing a photo. You when you shoot, we shoot on film, half your work was in the darkroom. Now with phones shooting in JPEG mode, it does the darkroom for you in a way. JPEGs automatically adjust contrast and saturation. Some phones know to sense that there's human skin or face, and it will adjust for that. Uh, it'll do all those things for you, adjust for the blown out bright areas or the too dark areas. But it's not going to do it the way you might have wanted if you want to control the photo. So you can do those adjustments after the fact. In your phone's app, most phones nowadays have a bunch of options, and they're getting better and better. For in about a minute, you can go through and adjust the overall brightness, adjust the highlights and the dark so you don't lose information in the shadows or the bright areas. You can adjust contrast. So yeah, all these different things, the color tint, if it's too warm or too green, you can adjust that a little bit. So go through, because every phone's a little different, I decided not to show all of them. I will do a quick video that I'll put online for doing it on an iPhone, but it's worth learning or just playing around with those and making your photos better. Now, in more serious cameras, and even on a couple now smartphones, you can shoot in RAW. That's much more like shooting on film in the past because it doesn't do anything automatically. It has a lot more data, so it's a much higher quality photo in the end, but it's not adjusting anything, so it's going to look a little bland at first. And I think I have some examples. So here, that same photo we did before, on the left is the raw photo. It looks fine. I know what raw has in it, so I know there's a lot of information here. It just hasn't been done. Here's what I did in the end. I did this in Photoshop in about exactly 3 minutes because I shot a video of it. That's where you're gonna get your final best look. If we have time, I'll show the video, but I don't know if we want to do that. I might just I might have us put that on the website instead. But again, here's the original. Here's the final. You'll notice, okay, I know that there's that highlight in the eye because I used the light. And so once I did the adjustments of contrast and brightness and a little bit of spot brightening there, I've got the final thing, which is much more what it looked like to my eye because our eyes automatically process for us and our brains do. And then I also did a little thing, a vignette. Most of you know what that is. That's just a very slight darkening around the edges. Here, vignette, no vignette, vignette. It can be overdone and overkill. I like to do them where you wouldn't know it was there unless you had a before or after. Some people like to do them really strong. It's personal preference. But what it does is it brings our focus into the center. It kind of makes the edges fade away a little bit. So I like doing it sometimes, and this is an example of that. And then, oh, I had processed by the phone, but we're going to cover that separately. Sarah, do you, should we run? This is about a 3-minute video of photoshopping. That could get a little technical for some
Yeah,
people who don't want to bother. So
yeah.
website, right?
I think it would be great to upload this to your website, which we'll give everyone the link to, and then that way we'll have about 15 minutes or so left for the Q&A.
Cool. Okay, good. So we will skip this, and it doesn't want to skip it. Okay. So lastly, a couple advanced tips. Depth of field is and shutter speed for action. We can also talk about lens choices, but that's getting a little in the weeds for most people. So depth of field is that number 2 tip I mentioned that is as important to me as getting to their eye level. Depth of field, for those of you who don't know, that simply means when you're looking at stuff at different distances from you, there are different depths of distance. Depth of field is a description of what's in focus. You can either have a wide depth of field, which means everything that's from things that are very close to you to things that are really far from you are all in perfect focus. That's a wide depth of field. And then a narrow or tight depth of field is when only the subject that you're interested in. So just your cat's eyeballs are in focus and everything in front, even their nose, but certainly things much closer and buildings in the distance are all out of focus. That will make the difference often between a snapshot and a photograph. I'll get into that a little more in a second. Shutter speed. How fast your camera takes the picture tells you how quickly it captures a moment in time. So you have a spray of a hose, fast shutter speed, you'll get the water droplets. Slow shutter speed, you'll get a blur of water. Also a nice choice. So we'll talk about both of those real quick. And you can do that on a cell phone, but you can't really do depth of field. You can only do fake depth of field on a cell phone. So depth of field is dictated by the f-stop mainly. That's how wide the hole that light comes through your camera is open. When it's really, really wide, you get a very narrow depth of field. The bush in the background was only about 3 feet behind her, maybe 4. But it makes her pop. Here's a better example, those cats in Montepulciano here. I just wanted the cat in focus and nothing else. It gave me a much bigger sense of space and made the danger of the fall more dramatic to me than if it was all in focus. In focus, it wouldn't have felt as distant, which it really was distant, but it wouldn't have felt it. So that's why I went here. And I just love cats' joy of courting danger and making us feel faint of heart. Sometimes it's because you can't control a background. Here on the left, I had a Gorby, a crappy background, didn't have any choice. It was going to be a messy photo, but very tight depth of field made her pop, or him, I don't know. And it ended up being a decent photo. And here, my wonderful friend Erica with another amazing sheltered Pasadena Humane dog. Again, kind of a messy background, but I liked it out of focus. It just, to me, it felt homey. If it was everything was in focus, that would have been a busy shot with a tree growing out of one's head and a post growing out of the other. So now, real quick, I could go over how you do this and why it works, but I think I'll just put that on the website as well on my web link when we're all done. But with some cell phones, like I know more recent iPhones have something called portrait mode. I don't know what other phones call it. And that does a fake depth of field. It can sense what your subject is and just blur everything that's in the background and foreground. It's not perfect. It's getting better. It's a software thing. It's not actually happening with the light like a serious camera will, and you can control it the same way. So you can still get it. It's worth it. It looks good, but if you want to play with this, it's worth learning on a real camera. Shutter speed. These are all high shutter speed photos because I really wanted to get the detail in the middle. That's our acrobatic Lexi jumping from the Humane Society. This girl on the right, she always did this with her water. It was easy to predict. So I could get a super high, I think 1/8,000th of a second and get these amazing effects. Here is with a camera, you can see the different shutter speeds, you get different effects. And then, just do this quickly, fast, a little less fast, a little less fast, a lot less fast, 200th of a second, and it makes your dog punch the other one in the face, apparently. And then here's the same thing with an iPhone. There's a way to do it. It's not, some actually have a setting, but here's how you do it. First, you tap to get your focus, and you hold it, and then just touch anywhere on the screen and drag up or down will make it brighter or darker. That's actually changing the speed of the shutter. So you drag, and then you take your photo, and of course the kiss again. So I made it really bright, and I got this on the bottom right because it's a slower speed. If I made it, I'm sorry, making it very dark, I'm sorry. And then the opposite, you get the high shutter speed. So it's not technically a setting, but it works. And that is that's this portion of the program. One more shot of a detail that I loved. Someone noticed that one of these dogs looked like an exclamation mark, so I had to just get that detail. And now I'm going to hand it back over to Sarah, and we'll go to the Q&A.
Hi, everyone. That was fantastic, Glenn. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Wake up,
Glenn,
everybody. I'm done talking.
hey, Glenn, would you mind popping up that last slide for us?
Oh, yeah. Hold on a second.
So we had a lot of great questions coming in, but before we get into that, as you know, Glenn is one of our amazing volunteers at the Pasadena Humane Society. We have thousands of volunteers who support us in many different ways. And so if you're ever interested in getting involved with us, right now we're entering kitten season. And so we do need a lot of kitten fosters, and you can get more information about how to become a foster at pasadenahumane.org/foster, or even pasadenahumane.org/volunteer. There's also lots of ways to give and to help us. So you can look at that at pasadenahumane.org/ways to give. And if you're interested in getting any of those high value treats so that you can take some amazing photos of your pets, we are taking phone orders for curbside pickup at our shelter shop, and the number is there. And for all information on what we're up to at the Pasadena Humane Society, you can visit us at pasadenahumane.org. All right, without further ado, Glenn, we did have some questions coming in for you. So the first one that I'm looking at, actually, we got a lot of questions about photographing a black pet. So if your pet has black fur, whether it's a cat or a dog, how could you do that? And then especially when you have maybe two animals and they're sort of opposite colors, maybe a darker colored animal and a lighter colored one, what would be the best way?
This is the bane of my existence with these two guys. If I could, yeah, there. And now also this guy here, my black dog, he has very white muzzle, so he's got the black and white all in one. That's not fun. But okay, so let me just go back to your screen. Sorry about this. There we go. So couple things. For a black animal, you're always gonna have to deal with more light. That's where a bounce or a reflector, like I was showing, is really useful. And again, piece of poster board, anything white, piece of foil on the back of it for brighter light, that's going to be a big help. And you just kind of play around and position it. One thing I didn't mention there is sometimes you don't want it in direct light. You just want it in the ambient light outside. If you're outside, just the cloud cover is shade. There's still light in there to bounce, and just play with. This is a sample, so this won't work. But sometimes it's not just facing right on. Sometimes you have to have it at a weird angle, and you'll suddenly get, that was cool because that's fake. That's just light coming in on me. But you'll get something there. So play around with that. I generally avoid direct sunlight because then your contrast between the bright areas and the dark areas on a darker dog is so much more pronounced. You'll never get that full contrast range in a photo. Just cameras can't handle that. Eyes can, cameras can't. And then if you have two animals, you want to get, again, the darker one in a little more light. You want to get the lighter one in a little less if you can. Hold something up to get some shadow on them, or set your exposure for something between the two. So your darker dog will, or I'm saying dog, but animal, will be a little bit brighter, and your lighter one will be a little bit darker, but you're sort of in the middle, and then you can adjust it. And that's where doing adjustments after the fact are really helpful. Another thing, hold up a light. Like I showed in that video, I just held up a little flashlight. If it's too harsh, again, put something in front of it, a piece of tissue paper, tracing paper, paper towel, whatever it is. Bounce it off, hold the light and bounce it off of a card and get some soft light. I can't hear you, sorry.
I'm sorry, that was my mic was off.
Okay.
Another question we had was in regards to getting pets to cooperate. So if you have a very active pet, whether it's a kitten or just a really active animal, or if you're getting at their level and they keep wanting to come toward you or give you kisses on the face rather than sit for the photo,
Right.
how could you address activity in order to take a photo?
Enjoy the kisses. That's awesome. Okay, so well, with dogs, teaching them stay is really helpful. Really working on their stay is a hugely helpful thing. They will get bored eventually anyway. One thing to keep in mind, I'm going to jump around here for a second. Uh, we all have this experience where animals doing something incredibly adorable. We grab the camera and it's like a signal and they stop. One reason is when you hold something up in front of your face, they can't see your face anymore and they lose the connection. So sometimes it just helps to hold it a little below you. Sometimes it helps to get them used to it or just always having it out. So that's just something to think about. There's more tips on that. But as far as staying where they are, you sometimes have to, if your animal doesn't know stay, or if it's a cat that's not going to happen with, you try to put something that they're more interested in closer to where they are and just get as get back as little as you can so they still feel it. There's sometimes what I'll do is I'll hold my hand with something for them here and take the picture here so they want us, that's more interested to them. And then the last second I'll say, hey, look at me, and then take the photo. So if you have someone who can help, that's huge. Like some of those photos with the cat, with the gray cat that I had, my next door neighbor was safely 6 feet away from me because I just took those. But she had one of those feather toys, and so she was standing there and trying to get the cat's attention a little closer and just holding it like this in the line of sight of my lens so that I could be back here and taking it. But it looked like the cat was looking at me. So she would dangle it right in front of the lens and then lift it up for a second and I would take the photo. Other things, holding treats up, making a line of treats. Some dogs this works with, especially when I'm working with dogs that aren't trained yet. That keeps them busy. They want to go and get treat after treat. That lets me get further back and then call them and they can look up. There's probably more, but I want to get to some more questions, so I can add more to that later too.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one we had was sort of your opinion on removing or photoshopping out collars, if you have a preference, and your thoughts on making sure that paws and legs are all visible in a photo, if you have any preference for that.
Yeah. Okay, two really good questions. I'm glad the second one was asked because that's something I meant to mention. But if I forget, remind me to go back to that. So photoshopping, generally, my overall philosophy of my photography is I don't like to alter significantly what was there. I like to just make it look more or less like it looked to my eye. But now and then I will do something. In that sample photo I did in Photoshop, my dog had a lot of gunk in his eye. If it was just for me, I wouldn't care, but it's a photo I'm going to show. I didn't notice it when we shot. I photoshopped that out. I made it look cleaner. Um, Often with collars, with tags, I don't want my address visible if I'm showing photos, so I will Photoshop that out. Dogs that I have to photograph on a leash for the Humane Society, sometimes they don't look as appealing if they're on a leash. I have Photoshopped the leashes out for that. I won't change how a dog looks there at all. Now, if you know you don't want the collar in it, take the collar off before you shoot. It's usually good. But I don't like doing anything where you have to be really expert to do it and make it look like nothing was done. But if it's just a little thing that's marring the photo and something you really didn't want to have there, but you had no choice, I'm fine with that. I would not do any serious change to an animal other than that. Oh, one other change I'll do sometimes, if especially at the shelter, an animal just had a cut on over their eye, but we know it's going to heal in a couple of days, and this is their adoption photo. I don't want a lot of blood on their face, but we can't control it, so I will fix that sometimes. If it's an ongoing thing, that's something that the animal has, I won't fix that because that's the animal. That's honest. And Ronnie, I already did forget the other question. Oh, paws and tail, something to think about with animals, big all over, and actually with people, we tend not to cut off parts. You'll notice a lot of my photos I did. I generally say if you're going to go tight on purpose, like the one of my dog in the chair where I was, about like this, then yeah, cutting off is great. If that's artistically the thing you're after. But generally, if you're trying to show the whole animal, you don't want to just cut off the feet. Now, sometimes I've done that because I'm doing shelter photos and we don't have a lot of options and animals are hard to work with. My own dogs, I try not to do that. It's generally with people and animals cutting off at a joint, like right at the knee, right at the ankle. That feels weird. It looks like they were amputated. It's something we try to avoid. So you want a photo of someone just like that. So try to get them all in, or crop it more. If that was your only option. Crop it someplace where it feels better to you. Uh,
Fantastic. Yeah, that's
yeah,
all
I'll show
great.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, you can bring up a photo if you want. I'll ask the next question.
Okay.
So I think we had some. I was slightly jealous, of course, but jealous photographers in regards to the cat with those spectacular eyes.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips besides finding an amazing cat with amazing eyes for capturing sort of that glow in
Let me
animals?
see. Okay. Let me show you the actual photo that came from, because I didn't start. Okay, so that's the photo. It was a wider shot and I zoomed in a bit. That's what I was trying to get, but that's as close as I could get to the cat. Um, I have it here. Okay, we have like minutes, so I won't waste the time. Okay, so pardon me for doing this. I'm just running through again. Uh, so most most animals actually have really interesting eyes. I mean, if you get close enough and tight enough, you're gonna. I mean, unless it's just really really dark and there's not much detail there. If you get a light shining in or a reflector, that's what I did with her. Um, I didn't realize her eyes were that amazing until I had that reflector on her, and also space exploded. And I've noticed that with my dogs, uh, that I see things that I didn't see unless I got enough light in them and just keep trying to get focus. The other trick is that shallow depth of field. Now, I did do something that's really hard for most people to do in that photo. I have a 50 millimeter, my trusty 50 millimeter lens, my baby, it was right here. Anyway, it goes down to 1.2 for an f-stop, or I guess up technically. That's really tight focus. The eyeball's in focus, the eyelid isn't. It's really hard to shoot, so I had to take a ton till I finally got the focus because you can't tell by looking. But that's where you're going to get that fine detail as well. You don't have to go that low. You can 2.8, something a little bit bigger. This will make sense if you understand f-stop. You can do it, but really tight focus is the other key. Light focus.
Fantastic. We had so many great questions coming in, Glenn. So I just want to take the last couple minutes to let everyone know that I did put the URL for Glenn Kamhai's animal website, animal photography website. So please check that out. It has some contact info as well. If you have a more specific question for Glenn, because we did get questions regarding how to photograph shelter animals specifically, and that
Oh,
involves
good. Yeah.
that involves a little bit of behavior training. We also got some questions regarding your opinions on some favorite lenses when you're shooting really fluffy pets, or your tips for using Lightroom. So I think if for more specific questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We'll make sure your questions get to Glenn. Our email address is outreach@pasadenahumane.org. And also, as a reminder, you'll be getting a link to this webinar recording in an email tomorrow afternoon. So if you want to go back and look at any of the photos or listen to any of Glenn's tips, that will be available to you. Glenn, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to do this. We really appreciate it. It was fantastic. And I don't know, Glenn, do you have any parting words for us?
Yeah, actually, one quick thing. This photo that I have up now, you'll notice she did have a leash on, and I did Photoshop it out because wasn't as funny a photo with the leash on, but we had to. We were in a public space, so we didn't have a choice. And it's very important. Costumes. I didn't mention that. Yeah, I would love to get into some more details. I love talking lenses and all that type of equipment. And the little video, which I will have up later in the day at the website, which the glennkamhai.com/animals. That will have the video of the basics of what I did in Photoshop. And if people are interested, I could show a lot more detail. I love detail. Thank you so much for doing this. Everyone help the Pasadena Humane Society. They are amazing. I love the people and of course, the animals. And thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you soon.
Sorry, one last thing.
Oh,
Share
yes.
your photos. Share your photos with us. If you take some photos, stuff you haven't done before, that you used any of these tips, post them Sarah will tell you how to link to the tag the Humane Society. We would love to see them.
Yeah, it's in the chat. Tag us at Pasadena Humane
Oh,
Pasadena
there it
Humane.
is. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Glenn. We really appreciate everyone joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Bye.